let's go ahead and get started. But I guess first, I want to find out who Aaron and Kate are. So welcome, Aaron and Kate. I'm assuming and you guys are business or property owners on Broadway and had received some invites from Alexis and Mariah. So I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself. I wasn't going to do this, but I think with the small group we have here, I think it'd be fine to know who everyone is, and we'll also do some introductions.
No problem. I'm Kate Newby, and I represent the Bayshore Mall.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. So Zach or Aaron, whoever can unmute first, go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind, and who you represent.
Hi, my name's Zach. I work for Valley Pacific Petroleum, Renner Petroleum. I got the invite from the guys at the Chevron Marine Terminal that couldn't attend.
Okay. Great. And then Aaron, do you mind introducing yourself? All right, well, maybe Aaron.
You have to unmute first. I don't know if you know how to do that. You have to go to the bottom of the screen and hit mute to be able to talk.
And I don't know if for some, well, it doesn't look like he's on the phone, but I know on a phone you have to press *6 to unmute. But, okay. And it looks like we've got another one. All right. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? Would you mind introducing yourself and who you represent? And then we can't hear you. You just got to click on mute. There you go.
Hey, hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Anglin. I represent Anglin Secondhand at 2016 Broadway here in Eureka.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. All right, well, thanks for jumping on this meeting. And Mariah, in a moment, I guess I'll tell you when maybe to share the PowerPoint. But let's start by doing some introductions and let everyone know who we all are. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Jeff Pimentel. I'm a project manager for Caltrans here in District 1 and manage most of the projects that you see probably in your backyard going through Eureka and Arcata. So anyway, happy to have you all here tonight and give you guys some information on what we're planning to test on Broadway. So with that, Alexis, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alexis Kelso, and I'm a senior transportation planner here at Caltrans.
And then Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Shelley, also a planner at Caltrans.
And Corey.
Hi, thanks for coming here tonight, you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm Corey Reed. I'm the Chief of Public Information for Caltrans.
And then Mariah.
Hi there, my name's Mariah Miracle. I'm a Public Information Officer for social media here at District 1.
And then last but not least, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Joseph Caminiti. I'm a designer here at Caltrans for advanced planning.
Okay, great. And then Aaron, were you able to figure out unmute? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. So if Mariah, if we could load the PowerPoint. All right, great, thanks. So we wanted to invite the businesses along Broadway to educate and bring some awareness to something that we're going to be testing on Broadway. The department has, I wouldn't say tasked, but taken it upon themselves through a lot of influences and culture changes in the department to kind of do a better job of broadening our focus on roadway improvements to include all users and not be so vehicle centric, which I would say, you know, in years past has been probably more of the focus has been transportation improvements tend to largely be focused on vehicles. And on Broadway, there is a significant need for improvement for non-motorized users as well, which would be, you know, pedestrians, bicycles, and you even have subsets of each of those groups depending on their particular uses and how they experience and use Broadway and roadways facilities in Eureka. So really our subject matter here and what we're trying to test, and I'll get into that here in a moment, but is really what we call focused on complete streets improvements. And the typical kind of path that Caltrans takes on projects is we develop a project and concept. We will, develop preliminary designs, depending on the level of, say, like an environmental document or even public and community interest. We may have a public meeting to get, community feedback and input and show preliminarily what we're looking at in terms of a transportation project. But in this, with what we're calling Broadway pop-ups, pop-up is kind of a new term that we're seeing pop up, no pun intended, and various kind of transportation agencies that are using this method to test improvements on a roadway before they're actually made permanent. And actually, I just heard today that in McKinleyville, there's going to be a pop-up demonstration where they're going to test a certain change to the roadway in McKinleyville as a way to get, see how it actually performs, get data, a chance to get community feedback on that before we go and spend a lot of money to make something permanent. We figure why not test it and see how it works and also see how the community likes it. And based on those things, we can iterate and make changes so that the final product and the final, construction and proposal of what we're going to build is something that is going to be the best fit for all users. So with that, I'm going to kind of get into it. So we can go to the next slide. And actually, one other thing I wanted to mention, and that's kind of specific to this group of business owners, is, I was involved number of years ago on what was called the Broadway feasibility study. And I remember we interfaced and actually had a specific business owner meeting, outreach meeting to discuss some preliminary kind of feasibility of concepts that we were looking at along Broadway. And so I know on Broadway we have a very engaged business community that I know is very focused on access to their businesses and being able to, make it easy for customers to reach their businesses in terms of access. And so we felt it was important with these proposals and these temporary changes we're planning to test to have a special outreach to the business owners to be able to kind of have a channel of communication with all of you for any feedback or concerns you might have on what we're proposing. So this is really specific for the business owners. We will follow up and have a larger public meeting that will also be open to all of you as members of the public, but we wanted to kind of have a smaller forum and give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions or bring up any concerns. So with that, the agenda for today will be introductions. We've already done a little housekeeping already. I'll do a little bit more in terms of how to interact with the meeting. I did a little bit of an overview of the Broadway pop-up demonstrations, but I'll provide a little more detail on that in terms of what they are and the what, the why, and the how. We'll get into showing you the actual location of where we're proposing to install these temporary measures, as well as the features and kind of the reasons why we're looking at certain temporary measures that we are. And then very important part's going to be the community and the business owners and property owners' involvement and the feedback we get. So we'll talk a little about how you can all get involved in the process to make it effective for what we're trying to accomplish with this testing. And then we'll close it with some Q&A. So with that, you can go to the next slide. So this is a little more housekeeping. So if you could remain muted when you're not speaking. I know sometimes either the dog starts barking or something, and it's just easier if everyone stays muted unless you're speaking. If you do have a question, there should be a raise hand button. I don't know what your end looks like as a participant, but feel free to raise your hand. Mariah will be kind of monitoring the chat as well as the hands being raised. I am going to ask if we could hold questions to the end. And I know there will be moments where we're going over the actual specific temporary pop-ups that we're planning to install. So we will have an opportunity to go back to that if you have specific questions about locations and things of that nature. So don't worry, we'll be able to do that. And then if you're participating by phone, then you can use *6 to mute or unmute, and you can also use *3 to raise your hand. And then this meeting is also being recorded and will be posted online. So I'd encourage you to also share this with any other business owners along Broadway that you're either friends with or that you know. We're really just trying to get this information out as wide as we can amongst your specific subset of business owners and property owners. So that would be appreciated and helpful. You can go to the next slide. This is just a non-discrimination policy statement that's pretty standard. We normally do this when we have in-person, public meetings, being that we've made this shift to virtual public meetings for the time being. This is just a little statement regarding Title VI. So I'll read a little bit of this for you guys, but Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its services, programs, and activities, whether they are federally funded or not, and that services and benefits are fairly distributed to all people, regardless of race, color, or national origin. In addition, Caltrans will facilitate meaningful participation in the transportation planning process in a non-discriminatory manner. Related federal statutes, remedies, and state law further those protections to include sex, disability, religion, sexual orientation, and age. For more information or guidance on how to file a complaint or get more information regarding Title VI, you can contact the Title VI branch manager at 916-324-8379, or you can also visit that webpage. And I believe Alexis put some information in the chat, specifically the public participation survey, and also a link as shown in the slide to the Title VI items. Okay.
Jeff, I also wanted to let you know we had a new attendee since you did the introductions. I think Michael's new. Okay.
Well, welcome, Michael. And maybe what we'll do is as we get to the end in Q&A, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and who you represent. So thanks for joining us. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, in terms of background, something here. So I don't have the year in front of me when this was done specifically, but we might be able to speak to that after. Oh, actually, I see it's right on the picture there, February of 21. So the Eureka Broadway Multimodal Corridor Plan, which was developed between Humboldt County Association of Governments and the City of Eureka, largely focused on multimodal connectivity, also safety, congestion, and creating a sense of place in Eureka. That study was completed, as I mentioned, back in February of 21, focusing on those elements. Some of these things that were discussed and studied as a part of that study, you may have seen starting to kind of come to fruition as projects in Eureka. A number of those, such as ADA improvements. You may have recently seen a lot of ADA improvements that were completed along 4th Street with upgraded and replaced driveways and curb ramps. We recently, and have just a little more work left that we'll complete here in the spring, on our Broadway ADA project that was on the kind of more of the southern part of Broadway. We also have our South Broadway complete streets, which is currently in the environmental phase at this time, and that proposes to put a separated bike path along that southern section of Broadway, along with other kind of multimodal improvements through that stretch. And then we actually have a new kind of exciting element that will be added, what we call a mid-block crossing. There'll be a new pedestrian activated and a beacon or signal crossing near the Broadway Cinema. That's planning to be constructed here later this spring. And then we're actually currently studying the feasibility of another couplet that would extend kind of towards the southern part of Broadway. It would kind of encapsulate, we had studied what we called the Coster couplet at one point, if you were familiar with that at all, that came from extended 4th Street around through what's called the balloon track, and then on to Coster, connecting back to Del Norte. And now we are studying another couplet that would pick up from that point and head further south. I don't know, Alexis, is it almost approaches the mall property, right? Bayshore Mall is where that's being studied. And that's not a project, so I want to be careful how we talk about that. It's really a study to assess feasibility of that, but it's definitely more of a long-range plan that we're studying. So with that, we can go to the next slide. So what is a pop-up demonstration, and what will they specifically be on Broadway? I talked a little bit about it at the beginning. Essentially, they're temporary improvements. And as I discussed earlier, kind of the conventional way that Caltrans or most transportation agencies develop and construct projects is they develop the idea of what they feel needs to be built based on certain issues or needs on a roadway, and we develop it, we design it, it gets advertised, it gets built, and then, you know, everyone just kind of is left with what's built. We try to do the best we can in the situations that make sense and that are warranted to go and get that community feedback and public feedback when shaping those improvements. But we're really trying to use something innovative here and new that's been done in other areas, where we actually temporarily test certain improvements on the facility by installing them in a temporary fashion, and see, one, how they operate, how the community likes it, how does the community interact with it, and it really gives us an understanding of the effects and the potential that the improvements might have in a permanent, I guess, condition or a permanent construction condition. It also gives the community something to interact with, so we can get feedback based on real experiences rather than a concept that we might propose at a public meeting, and, you know, everyone has their opinion on how it might work or how it might not work. So by installing them, we can actually see how they'll work. And then it also allows us to make adjustments to those locations, either on the fly during the demonstration, during the test, and also make adjustments based on data we receive and feedback that would inform the actual design of an improvement that would be constructed on a permanent basis. All right, we can go to the next slide. So what will the temporary changes be? The changes and the temporary measures that we are proposing to install kind of fit in 4 different categories. The first one being traffic calming lane closures. So there are a number of acceleration and deceleration lanes along Broadway. And when I talk about Broadway, I should have mentioned this earlier, we're really talking about the segment from just south of the Papa and Barclays intersection, which was the old Kmart, and then heading all the way northbound to essentially almost the 4th and 5th Street couplet. So over there by the Nielsen Feed Company, Roy's Auto Center. So we're really looking at this whole stretch. And through there are a number of acceleration, deceleration lanes. So for instance, I mentioned the Papa and Barclay property. If you're heading northbound, there's a deceleration lane to take that. If you're heading, you know, northbound 101 to go into that property. And then likewise, there's also an acceleration lane if you're coming out of Papa and Barclay or the old Kmart to accelerate and merge onto 101 going in the northbound direction. So we'll actually be testing in some of those locations, putting channelizers similar to the ones you see in the picture on the very left, that would close those acceleration, deceleration lanes with the intent of creating a traffic calming and a seal to the roadway and giving the perception of a tighter roadway prism that lends itself to, slowing traffic down. Second one would be curb extensions, also what we call bulb outs. So there in the second picture over, you'll notice similar channelizers that extend the curb face out and make that curve a little tighter. It also, if you'll notice, there's what we call like a piano key pedestrian crossing in that picture. And you'll notice that with the channelizers in the place that are in the picture, that crossing actually tightens up and gets shorter. So this not only provides a traffic calming effect, but it also provides shorter crossing distances for pedestrians. So there'll be some locations where we're testing that out as well. Third is median refuges at potential future pedestrian crossings. So these, I want to really iterate and drive home that these median refuges will not be pedestrian crossings in this temporary pop-up demonstration. They will simply be a portion of the two-way left turn lane center median that will be closed, where vehicles will not be able to, you get in the two-way left turn lane and you can travel for a distance as you kind of try to negotiate merging into traffic. They'll be closed and with channelizers similar to the ones you see there that would not allow you to travel through that segment. We're not going to use them as pedestrian crossings, but we're just trying to test how having a refuge there for pedestrians, how it might have an effect on vehicles and traffic and access and emergency vehicle response as well. So that will be that measure. The final one is what we call a class 4 bikeway. So class 4 bikeway, that type of bikeway has some sort of physical barrier between the traveled way and the bike path. So through a segment, we'll be testing similar to what you see there. I'm not certain that we've confirmed the color of them or the exact shape and size of them and spacing, but similar to that, where you see that bike lane in the shoulder, we'll have some sort of physical barrier such as that channelizer, some sort of a bollard. It won't be a fixed like concrete bollard like you normally would see, or like a bollard is typically the way I think about it. It's like a fixed concrete bollard that you might see on the corner of a building or something to prevent a vehicle from creating damage to something. These will be something that will be a little more flexible and not rigid, but nonetheless, visually there'll be a barrier between traffic and bikes. So those kind of are the 4 categories of things that we'll be testing. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So now at this moment, we'll take to actually spin through those 4 things that I mentioned in terms of what we'll be testing and where we'll actually be proposing to install them. So I'm going to turn it over to Joseph, who will be spinning us through the map and showing everyone where we're proposing to put these.
All right. Can everyone see the screen okay? All right. So I'll just preface this with a little kind of legend here. So what you're going to be seeing as we cruise along here, you're going to be seeing white dots, yellow dots, and green dots. And all they represent is general locations of where flexible posts might be placed. And the white means that they're in the shoulder, yellow means that they're in the median, and green are for the bike lane. And so we're going to start on the southern end here. You see Herrick Avenue here. So just north of Herrick Ave on the northbound on-ramp. We're planning on placing some flexible posts fairly distant from each other. And the goal of this is to try to provide traffic calming as people are coming into the city, from a freeway segment. As we all know, they're going pretty fast still. So we're trying to provide some friction there along the shoulder and slow them down. Moving a little more north here, you see the first median island. This is one of the median islands that is not for, future pedestrian refuge use. It's for traffic calming. And again, for the same reason, people coming into town at high speeds. Moving further north now toward the Pop and Barkley intersection here, you'll see another traffic calming median island. And then this is where you'll see the deceleration lane and the acceleration lane are blocked off, as Jeff mentioned. Part of this is oftentimes acceleration and deceleration lanes aren't placed at signalized intersections because you can wait for the signal for the acceleration lane, at least. You can wait for the signal to turn green and then go and not worry about accelerating to beat traffic. So yeah, we want to kind of tighten up the roadway, like Jeff said, provide that traffic calming feel, and give that space to bicyclists. Moving further north, you'll see another traffic calming median island. Moving north all the way up to the Pearsons intersection now. Again, we're blocking off the acceleration lane here at the Pearsons intersection, providing a bulb out. So this is the first median island that is representing a potential future pedestrian crossing location. The reason for this pedestrian crossing is that if you're traveling northbound and you want to get across to the Hikshari Trail out here along the bay, Hillfaker Lane provides that connection. And so this would provide a safe crossing for both pedestrians and bicyclists. Moving further north, we're going to get up to the McCollins Avenue intersection. The intersection is pretty tight except for this southwest corner. So we're providing a bulb out there. Moving up to the Truesdale Highland intersection, I'll take a moment on this one. So again, similar to the Hillfaker connection to the Hikshari Trail down there to the south, this is another potential connection. So the city is planning on designating Highland Avenue as a Class 3 bike route. So we can expect bicyclists to be using that, and they already are, and pedestrians as well. And then Truesdale would provide that connection to the Hikshari Trail. And as we all know, this is an offset intersection. Movements between here for even vehicles are difficult because of this offset. And so we're trying to figure out a design here for the future that can safely accommodate peds and bikes to get across here. And there's been a number of collisions in this area, and this would help, mitigate that. And so this would block access for left turns to and from Highland Avenue and Truesdale Street. Truesdale Street already does not allow left turns out. Yep.
Do we have time now to voice our opinions on this?
So we're actually we're gonna hold all questions to the Q&A, and if there are specific questions about anything Joseph's going through, we'll be able to come back to this and go to those locations and talk about it, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good.
Cool, thanks.
Sweet. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Zach. So moving more north here, we're getting to the South Bayshore Mall entrance. Again, removing the acceleration and deceleration lanes and actually turning the acceleration lane into a temporary bus stop. So we're coordinating with Humboldt Transit Authority on that. And the idea is to test whether or not this would be a good location for a replacement for the southbound stop that's currently at McCollins Avenue. So during the pop-up demonstration, people can still board and get off at McCollins if they want to, but we're also providing this temporary stop here. Moving further north, get to the northern Bayshore Mall entrance, removing the acceleration lane. And then, but still allowing people to use the pork chop here, similar at Pearson's, providing room for people to make the turn still. Here's another key feature. So Harris Street kind of acts almost like an off-ramp from Broadway. People take it at very high speeds, and in the future, with sidewalk infill on the northbound side, potentially, there might be a need for crossings here for pedestrians and bicyclists. And definitely for bicyclists, because if you're going northbound, there's no other way to get across. And so we're looking at putting a large bulb out here to try to tighten it up, while still allowing, proper vehicle turning and everything, but just making sure to slow people down a bit because they take it at high speed. Further north, we get to Bayshore Way, a small bulb out there. Henderson Street, these are supposed to be white dots, but anyway, another bulb out. Moving further north. So it doesn't show it on this map, but this is where KFC is. You can see by the indicator here. And this would be another spot for a future pedestrian crossing, potentially. So put a median island there. And so at Hawthorne, this is where we start the class 4 bikeways on either side of the street. So that's why you see the green dots. We're thinking about trying out 2 different types of vertical separation for the bikeways. So that's why they kind of look different. And so through here, a couple driveways are being blocked, but we're trying to avoid taking, totally blocking off a business. So the driveways that are currently blocked as shown here are 2 driveways for, I believe this is Eureka Auto Wholesale. So these 2 driveways, they have access on Hawthorne. And then for this whole lot here, they have 3 driveways on, actually 4 driveways on Broadway if you include this one. And we would be blocking the 2 most northern driveways. And so those are the only locations within the project limits that are totally blocking a driveway. And again, trying to provide access still to those businesses. And so you'll see that there are breaks in the separation for all the other driveways. We would use the right turn lane going north at the Wabash intersection and turn that into bikeway. Provide a bulb out here. And yeah, move further north. Bulb out at 15th. Bulb out at Cedar. Keep going. Bulb out near Clark Street here. And some bulb outs at 7th and Commercial and 6th. And so that is the gist of what is going on. I will pass it back to Mariah and Jeff now.
So Mariah, if you could bring up the next slide, and I know there's some of you want to probably talk about specific locations. Let me get through. I think we only have a couple slides left, or maybe one, then we can go into that.
I'm working to reestablish the PowerPoint.
No problem. Okay, so a little bit about how to get involved. We'd like you guys, to the extent possible, talk to your other neighboring business owners or people that you know that have businesses along Broadway, even, anyone just in the community, because the more people that we can get to be aware of what we're trying to do here and test, the better. Engagement is key on getting the data we need to really evaluate these items. We do have a web page set up it's on a Caltrans kind of domain name, but right now we've got a URL that is broadwaypopups.com that will redirect you to the web page we want you to go to. We just figured broadwaypopups.com is going to be a lot easier in conversation to remember, write down, whatnot. So there will be a survey on the broadwaypopups.com website. It's not there now, but once the pop-up demonstration is installed and going, you should be able to go to the website and you'll find a link to a survey that you can take to be able to provide that feedback. Another item that we'd like businesses to hopefully be willing to do, and I know some businesses will lend this to itself better than others depending on whether you get customer traffic or not, but we will have handouts available upon request for businesses that wish to either display them in their windows or businesses, have some available there for people to take that'll have, a little bit of information, similar information to what we're sharing here, but most of it will be to get people kind of driven to the website. Most all the information by the time we launch the pop-ups will be on the website and available to engage with, including the locations and everything. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, actually go back one before I go to the Q&A. Wasn't quite sure if we had one more. So the last thing I wanted to speak to was schedule. When can you expect this? What can you expect? So really the pop-up locations and what you've seen is still in a draft form. It's not completely finalized. The other thing to note is that we're not planning to install all of these items at one time. Internally, we're currently working out a staged schedule to which ones will be installed when and for how long. So I would expect anywhere between 2 to 4 stages of these temporary measures being installed. And we are expecting that each stage will be in place for approximately 1 month. That could deviate a little bit, but it appears that a month is about the time that they'll need to be installed. And like I said, we're not planning to install them all at once, just more so because it's just a lot of changes at once to put out and play. So we currently are working on what those staged implementations will be. We will share that at the larger public meeting that we'll have, which we have not set a date for that yet. And also the stages, schedule, and whatnot will be available once it's determined on the website. So I would keep tabs on that. We do have a Broadway pop-ups email address. So actually something I know, Corey, we haven't talked about, but if Alexis, if you could put the email, dedicated email that we have for that, or actually I think it's even on the last slide, maybe after Q&A, but if you could go ahead and put it in the chat, if you don't mind. Anyone that would want to get an update, maybe email update once we have some of those items updated on the website, so that maybe you're not having to like click every day and see if it's up there. We can just maybe let you know. Give us your email address, and then maybe we can send out an email blast letting everyone that's responded or sent an email to that address, provide updates that way. So I encourage you to go in the chat and write down or copy and paste that Broadway pop-ups at dot.ca.gov email address. So with that, let's go to the next slide and go to Q&A. So I guess if you could use the raise your hand feature, if possible. You should see that at the bottom of your screen next to, I think there's a smiley face for reactions, and there's a little raise hand. So if you use raise hand, I think Mariah will monitor the chat and go from there. So I see Zach, you've got a question. So go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead.
My concern is the blocking off the turn lane on the Truesdale entrance, there by the old Marie Callender's in Highland. We have the Eureka Chevron Marine Terminal is in the back there behind the mall. And we run probably 20 to 30 trucks a day into that marine terminal to load fuel. When you're northbound, you always use that turn lane to turn in Truesdale. If you guys block that, you're going to have to go up to the stoplight at McDonald's, and that turn lane isn't very long before you're going to get back to where you're blocking it off. And we got numerous trucks, 65-foot trucks. They're going to be having to turn in at that stoplight and then cut through the Sportsman's Warehouse parking lot one way or the other to try and get back to Truesdale, because the entrance to the rack is past Seamus around the back of the corner. That's the way you got to enter. So that's going to cause a huge traffic with semi trucks in that area.
And How do the trucks exit? Do they exit the mall entrance? They exit Truesdale.
So you go in Truesdale and then you pull around the backside and then you load and you exit right there between the mall and Sportsman's Warehouse. And then you go up to the stoplight and exit and go north or south from there.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it's going to be the northbound traffic that's trying to go to the rack that is going to be hung up trying to get in there. And then once, even if you go to the light, then trying to weasel your way through that parking lot, it's pretty tight to get back to Truesdale.
Joseph, would you mind pulling up the aerial of this section just to look at?
Not at all, yeah. I'll let Mariah give me control here. I'll pull something up while she's doing that. Go ahead and share. Go. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So let me, zoom out just a little. I kind of want to look at the access behind Sportsman's Warehouse and Truesdale. Okay. So, Zach, currently, northbound truck will get in the two-way left turn lane, turn left on Truesdale, and then do they turn right on Howell?
Yep.
Or they go all the way to kind of the bank of the water there?
Yeah, you go all the way to the water and turn in, and the entrance gate's right there. And then you load under that square, you load under there, and then you come straight out.
Come out. And then you would and then you head straight to the signal.
Yeah, and then you go north or southbound, whatever direction you're going. But there's also, lots of other companies pull fuel out of there, and there's also trucks that bring up ethanol from Richmond every day. And there's 3 or 4 trucks that come up loaded with ethanol from the south that go in and out 7 days a week. And that area from where you block off the turn lane to that stoplight isn't very far. You get 2 trucks and you're going to have that turn lane plugged, and it's just going to cause a big traffic jam, especially when trucks are, the ethanol trucks are coming up loaded. They're not going to go through Broadway and go up to Broadway and have to make a U-turn somewhere up by 14th Street would be the easiest way to make a U-turn if that turn lane's already plugged up.
Okay. And I'm just asking some questions here, and this is, great. This is the reason why I want to have this meeting. So I'm just trying to learn here as we ask questions. Let's say Truesdale's closed. Your trucks go to the stoplight there at the South Bayshore Mall entrance. You turn left at the light to go in.
And that's also really tight right there because there's that concrete curb that runs in the middle of that. That turn is extremely tight to try and make that as well.
Right, just with off tracking, I imagine.
Yeah, you're 65 foot from bumper to bumper.
And that's very difficult on our concrete and asphalt in there.
Yeah, and that concrete curb right there is hard on trucks.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even make the turn the other way. Like if you're coming southbound and turn in there, you can't make that turn without going over that curb by the Bayshore Mall sign. You can't even make that turn if you don't use the turn lane and stay in the main lane even.
When you're driving a large truck, it's detrimental. You need the extra couple of feet of space when driving a large truck right there.
So, and I'm kind of willing to have a little bit more of an open conversation here. And I don't think we're not committing to anything here, but I just kind of want to have an open conversation with our planning staff at Caltrans. Joseph, can you go to the location of the two-way left turn lane there at Truesdale? We're proposing to close it. Something I've seen, in conditions where a raised median exists in a, maybe more urban environment, but you still provide like a left turn. What Alexis and Joseph, and this is something we obviously would need to take back to the team, but what do we think about in this location? Because what we're really trying to prevent here is the movements like from Truesdale across the highway, from Highland across the highway. Do we feel like there's maybe a scenario that accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish here, but that provides a left turn pocket with channelizers that would still prevent the crossover movement, but would allow vehicles going northbound to turn left into Truesdale?
There could be just a crossing on the north side of the Truesdale intersection.
Is what you're testing here is a potential PED crossing in the future?
Well, it's also for bikes. So the only problem with only having it on the north side of the intersection is that cyclists who are headed eastbound would not have the crossing to get to Highland. So, because if they would have to cross Truesdale, so go against traffic, and then cross, and then go against traffic again to get to Highland. So what we're trying to do is really make it so that bicyclists are consistently riding with traffic. Riding against traffic can be one of the leading causes for vehicle-bicycle collisions. But if we did the north side, that would at least provide the crossing in one direction and would provide pedestrian connectivity.
You're saying if there was a turn pocket there?
If there was a crossing for pedestrians, yes, thank you, Joe. And then we would just get rid of the rest of the cones so that two-way left turn lane would be open south of there.
Okay. So we'll need a, I guess we've got your concerns, Zach, down. I'm actually, I'm not surprised. And part of this was to hopefully get the players like yourself to attend so we could hear it directly from the people using it in that fashion to understand that. It sounds like there's maybe some more hands about this location too, so we'll talk about it more. I'm not sure if it was Jennifer or Kate, but Kate, I don't know if you want to go maybe, since I know you're representing the mall and that's right there.
Actually, one of the things I was most concerned about is where the fuel trucks were going to be coming and going from. So that was most of my discussion.
Okay. And I think Joseph and Alexis, what I'd like to do is after this, I'd like to run some truck turning templates also as we have this discussion at that turn lane into the Broadway entrance. I'm curious to see how, if we model it, how much off tracking there is and how much room or not room there is to even avoid any of that, the curbs that are there. Joseph, are you familiar with what the size trucks we need to model there, in terms of a maximum truck that'd be utilizing that, or would that be helpful if Zach gave you any of that information?
Yeah, it'd be helpful to get more of the exact details. We have pretty generic truck templates, so figuring out which one closest, most closely fits would be good.
Zach, you say the trucks are approximately 65 feet long?
Yeah, some of the truck and trailers I think are about 65 foot. They're a little bit longer. They track a little bit better than the trucks that have fifth wheel plates that are like semis, but they're 54-foot trailers. Some of them are up to 54 foot, and then you got the tractor in front of it. So you're pushing, 60, 65 feet with those as well, and they don't track nearly as well. Some of our trailers are a little shorter than that, but.
Do you know what the classification of that truck is? I think that's the way it works in the truck auto turn, Joseph, is you classify the vehicle you're modeling, right?
Yeah. So it's like there's STA trucks, California legal trucks, things like that. But I can also go off of dimensions too. Try to pick the truck that's closest.
And there's another thing is there's a lot of truckers that stop at that Best Western and park along Truesdale and stay the night. As you can see, they're parked right there. That's going to be another traffic issue with them trying to get in and out with that turn lane being closed.
Okay.
You drive down Truesdale at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and that thing is loaded with trucks.
Yeah, there's no room, and they end up in our lots too, which I am gentle with them, but don't prefer them there.
Right. Okay. Jennifer, I know you had your hand up. Did you have any input at this specific location, or did you want to talk to another location down by your business?
I would very much like to talk about another location.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings about that one. People try and zoom out so much from it. I feel like it gives people a chance to kind of come up to speed right there, but you know, I've got no real position. I would very much like to talk about my neck of the woods.
Yeah, let's go over to that location.
Yeah, between Hawthorne and Del Norte.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that we very much want a class 4 bikeway through there. Having a bikeway through there is good for our community. Like we're Humboldt County, you know, we want people to be able to do bikes. Unfortunately, because if you zoom in to the car lot next door, we don't have parking. The car lot has all of the parking. If you go up a little bit, just up a little bit, we got this tiny little slit of parking right there that is shared between the business behind us, the mechanic place even further behind us, and all of my employee parking has to fit in this tiny little sphere. Okay, so if you put in a bike lane right there, you take away all of my customers' parking. It would be fundamentally detrimental to my business, especially since the angle right there to get into it, you know, everybody's going 35 miles an hour right there. You know, there's no time to slow down unless you know where you're going. You can't just be like, oh, I'll stop over here, you know? Exactly, right there. So it's this tiny little curve. Unless you know where you're going, you don't know to slow down to turn right there. So if you take away my front parking right there, I might legitimately go under, because I rely on the impulse traffic, the traffic of travelers that are going from SoCal to Oregon. You know, they pull over on a whim. All that front stretch right there, like, that's where my people park. It's too harsh of an angle to get into that little smidgen of a parking lot unless you know where you're going.
Okay.
It is what it is, you know?
Yeah, no, I see your concern, definitely. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take your concern back to the team. And if I could, if you could email your contact information to that Broadway pop-ups email, I'd like to have some one-on-one dialogue with you based on our conversation, because you know, our goal is not to,
I mean, we're a small family-owned business. Like I can't. If you take away my parking, I won't survive, and that's just what it is.
Our goal is not to create hardships for businesses. We're trying to balance the use of all users, but I would like to go back and talk with the team and then communicate with you directly about it.
All right.
So,
And we will have a pop-up with that email again before the end of the webinar.
I don't know, maybe could someone just put the email back in the chat again, maybe, so it can pop up for Jennifer?
That'd be super great. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. And so I see Kate and Zach, you guys have your hands up, but I think that might have just been from the last go round. Did either of you have any further comments you wanted to make?
I don't, but I'll put some input on this. I agree with Jennifer. There's a bike path 2 blocks to the west that we've already put in to avoid bikes on Broadway. And I know people that ride bikes to and from work, and they use the bike path. They don't ride down Broadway. It's a suicide mission to ride a bicycle on Broadway these days. I don't see any need to block off that stretch for another bike path.
Okay, yeah, if you can, Zach, who is the representative at the Chevron state? So you're representing Renner, but you utilize the station, but I imagine there's probably a direct contact that would probably serve kind of all the users of that facility that might be a good person for us to have contact info for as well.
You're looking for contact info for the Eureka Marine Terminal?
Just, yeah, whoever kind of manages and runs that, that terminal there where all the trucks go to load fuel.
His name is Ken Nielsen, is the local manager there.
Okay. Do you happen to have a phone number for him?
I do.
Is that something you would mind sharing, or even, I don't know if you'd mind either sharing it over this now, or, if you don't mind emailing at the Broadway Pop-Ups email address and providing it that way, that also works for us.
I don't mind sharing my own number, and then you can contact me afterwards.
Okay, that works.
May I also email the Broadway pop-ups and communicate via that way as well?
In terms of your comments?
As far as the issues with the parking and the class 4 bikeway going in front of my business, is Broadway pop-ups a good way to communicate with you guys?
Totally, yeah. So if you want to email your comments there and then also provide your contact info, we'd like to get back with you once we've had a chance to talk about it a little further.
Very much. I just I'm not sure where to connect via the Zoom stuff. So
okay, well then why don't I can just, so you haven't been able to find the chat feature in the meeting then?
no, this is a little new to me. My apologies.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh wait. Little.
The email is also on the
it.
website. So if you go to BroadwayPopup.com, then you can find our email there.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate the communication. Thank you.
There you go. Thanks, Mariah. Mariah just put the slide up that has the email address and the website.
I see it right there. You guys are great.
And if you wanted to know where the chat was, it's in the lower right corner. There's like a little word bubble. And if you click on that, it opens the chat so you can see it. And Jack gave it.
I unfortunately found it right about the time that I acknowledged that I couldn't find it.
That's the way it always works, right? If you ask about it, it shows up.
Thank you.
And then Zach put his phone number in there too for us to reach back to him at the terminals. So, yeah.
Okay. Did anyone have any other comments or feedback?
I do. I would be interested in more information about the bus stop and how that would be designed and the plans for keeping it clean.
Okay, so I don't know if Alexis, do you want to share any information that you might have on just the temporary condition for a bus stop there? this is not a plan to make it permanent. It's just a test to put one there in a temporary fashion. So would you mind speaking to that, Alexis? Would that just be a sign? Would HTA actually put a shelter there? Could you maybe shed some light on that for Kate?
Sure. Yeah, it would just be a sign. It's a temporary change. So after a month or so, the bus wouldn't be stopping there anymore. So no shelter would be moved there temporarily.
Got it. It's sometimes, unfortunately, a volatile corner between the folks who stake claims on the corner there. So I would be interested in if who we would contact about disturbances there besides bugging EPD all the time. Would that be the transit authority we would want to talk to, or who could we chat with about how to make that a safer area?
So I think for the intents of the Broadway pop-up demonstration, if there's things that you feel are related to the temporary installations being made, then utilizing the Broadway pop-up's email address would be a good way to provide that feedback so that we can kind of jump on that and review it. And if you could also be sure to put contact information on that email so that we can, follow up, either by phone or, we can always respond to your email, but sometimes it might warrant a phone call. So that would be the best way there. If you're talking in general about bus stops and current issues, existing issues with certain locations related to bus stops, I would definitely direct those comments and questions to HTA. Does that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, we have a bus stop on site, so I'm familiar with how it all works. And then is this project in relation to the request that I got for encroachment approval there on that north side of the mall under our big marquee sign?
Is that an encroachment for like a temporary construction easement?
Yeah, it looked like they wanted to do some digging and such like that.
Yeah, that's not part of this. There is a ADA project to go and do a number of driveway, sidewalk, infill, curb ramp replacement, kind of bringing those features up to standard. So the right-of-way agreement likely that you have that was submitted to you maybe for signature is related to that project. And that project, just in terms of schedule, is proposed for delivery in terms of completing the design and final plans in June of this year, and is targeting construction towards the end of this year, calendar year. So I'm sure that's what that is related to.
Thank you. The person who was sending out the paperwork about it didn't have too much information, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm the project manager on that project as well. So, if you did have specific questions on that, I would go through, and communicate likely with the right-of-way agent that probably reached out to you on that. But you have my name, and if you had specific questions about the project or concerns or anything, you can go through them, and they know who I am, and if need be, we could, have a conversation. So not sure if there is any issue with it or not, but I manage that project as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then, Mariah, are we, I just want to make sure someone in the chat is recording. I know Jennifer put her email address and phone numbers. Someone could be marking those down to be sure we get those in the record.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Any other feedback, questions, comments that we haven't already discussed? All right, hearing none. I appreciate all of you taking the time to come attend this. I was hoping we'd have more people, but not to say you guys aren't valuable enough to have here. So we appreciate all your input and feedback and your concerns. So we hear those. We're going to take those back with our team and discuss them. And I think specifically, some of you, probably all of you, will reach out, especially Kate, Zach, and Jennifer. Yeah, I didn't forget you, Jennifer. I was going up the screen and you were at the top. So anyway, we'll be reaching out to you one-on-one to kind of bring closure to our discussions and trying to find an outcome that works for everyone. Aaron, I don't know if you had any comments. I know you were having maybe some audio issues. It looks like you represent the old Kmart at the end of town. So I'm assuming that's the Papa and Barclays. You have the Broadway pop-ups email address. So if you have any specific comments you wanted to provide us, please email us at that address, and we can call you on the phone where the audio should work just fine. So anyway, thanks everyone. Enjoy your evening, and we'll be chatting with you guys soon. Thank you.